The Influencer's Edge is brought to you by the Rapid Sales Accelerator. If you're ready to skyrocket your sales by 30% or more in just 90 days, then you need to claim your free training right now. You'll learn 4 words that will compel your prospects to trust you like they were children within the first 3 to 5 minutes of any conversation across any platform and any medium. You'll learn how to give your prospects objection amnesia, to crush objections like, I need to talk to my spouse, or I need more time to think it over, or it's too expensive. If you'd like to claim your free training now, go to www.paulrossbook.com. Do it before your competition does it now. Welcome to the Influencer's Edge. This is the place where you come to get the latest breakthroughs, cutting-edge insights, tools, and techniques to leapfrog over the pack in sales, persuasion, and influence. Be sure you visit our website at www.theinfluencersedge.com. And while you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now sit back, tune in, and enjoy today's episode. So welcome back to the Influencer's Edge. This is a show that disconnects the dots, colors outside the lines, and thinks outside the box. And I'm so honored to have today's guest because he is so brilliant and so kind and such a good friend and someone I'm proud to call a brother. He knows so much on the topics of neuroscience and influence and persuasion. He's going to shrug it off. He compliments me. I would say that my guest, Chase Hughes, understands more about influence and persuasion on the neurocognitive level than anyone else in the world. He's the #1 expert on body language in the world. This guy knows more about deception detection than anyone in the world. Chase, I don't know if there's anything you don't know. And there's such a broad range of topics. He's the author of 6-Minute X-Ray, the Ellipsis Manual. I want to say, Chase, when I read the Ellipsis Manual, I left a review on Amazon. It was very short. My review was terrifying. This book will remove your belief in free will. Which,
that's great.
I have a little bronchitis left over from a bad cold, but it's true. It did remove my belief in free will. And with everything going on, I don't even know if whatever free will means, but I have a new cat here and she wants attention, but I'm gonna have to keep tossing her down. Let's talk first and foremost about psyops, because there's so much going on in the news with so many different viewpoints, and the world has become so polarized. Either you're a libtard, woke, you're a woke libtard who wants to destroy America, or you're a Trump fascist, and I don't see any more nuances, any shades of gray. So let's talk about psyops, how we can tell when a psyop is taking place. Can you talk about the elements of a psyop?
Yeah, and one of the first, I'm the guy, I train psyops. I teach U.S. Army Psychological Operations Command, and one of the initial goals of psyops is to begin deleting gray areas in belief and thought. And if I can get a population to start warring against themselves, then I get them to worry about things while I'm doing something else in the background. And this is not, I didn't invent this. This has been done since the 60s, the 50s. Mr. Edward Bernays wrote a huge book on this, who was Sigmund Freud's nephew, invented propaganda pretty much. But if I get a population, if I can delete that little ambiguous area in the middle and I can split everybody here, then there's in-group fighting, which distracts from everything else that's going on. And the second thing is that the #1 way that you can tell that you're in the middle of a psyop is for an idea to flourish, information needs to be suppressed. And there is no point in history where suppression of information led to something beautiful and wonderful happening. Not one, none. So if you have a great idea, no one needs to be shut up. There will be people that disagree, there will be people that don't like it, but you don't need to silence people for the idea to flourish because it's a good idea.
Chase, one quick thing.
Yeah.
What's the distinction between suppressing information and classifying it and just taking it out of the public's realm of knowledge? Because it seems to me you lived in a classified world. I don't even know what your security clearance was, and you probably can't even tell me what it was. But doesn't the government would you call overclassifying things a way of suppressing information?
I don't, in my line of work with the stuff that we did, it was never that.
Okay.
It usually meant we're doing stuff that's we're coloring outside the lines, as you said just a few minutes
Okay.
ago.
All right.
And that's what happens. But I've never seen a situation where ideas are being classified or ideas are being subverted.
Okay. Got it.
But I will say that if you look at the biggest fear, if you look all around the world, and everybody's heard this before, like the biggest fear that people have is public speaking, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's never public speaking. Our actual real fear is judgment on a large scale. There's a huge crowd out here that can judge me. And that's the third level of Maslow's pyramid. So if I've got survival down, I know I'm going to be alive tomorrow. That's the next thing that's going to kill me, right? So we typically live to where a large social judgment means death because that's going to send us down a level on Maslow's pyramid. So knowing this, if I can orchestrate some kind of environment where judgment means a social death, and then I can show you publicly, maybe hypothetically, let's call it cancel culture. And if I can orchestrate where you disagree with my ideas and you get canceled, that's a psyop. We had, if we just talk about the virus that happened a few years ago, which everybody knows what I'm talking about, there were Harvard and Oxford educated doctors being silenced on the internet. That should be that was, when I saw that, that was the most terrifying thing I've seen since I've been alive. And I'm an expert in this kind of stuff. And that was terrifying. And even the dude, I can't remember his name, but the dude who invented the mRNA vaccine was silenced. It's just unbelievable that stuff was happening. And that's not some little isolated incident. That's happening all over everywhere right now.
Yeah, I remember this whole, I can say COVID, no one's going to censor me. No one just cares to censor me. I recall distinctly how anyone who dared to criticize the narrative was labeled as disrespectful or a disease spreader or a conspiracy theorist or a nut.
Social judgment.
Yeah. So, any other elements of a psyop that we have to be aware of?
There's a tremendous amount.
Tell
But
it.
one thing that you're an expert at is fractionation. And this is a concept I know I don't need to explain it to you, but for anybody listening, this is a concept in hypnosis where I'm going to bring someone out of a trance state and then back down and then kind of wake them up, pull them back down again. And the theory is that they get more familiar with that transition. And every time they make that transition, they allow themselves to kind of fall a little bit further down into the trance-like state. How did I do? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Uh, so if I can do the same thing, let's just, as an example, take Maslow's pyramid. You're scrolling through TikTok or Instagram or anything out there, any kind of social media. You're going to see something happy, then something that induces fear. There's a police body cam footage of somebody getting there punched in the face. There's wrongful accusations. There's a guy getting pulled over by a bully cop. There's
Right.
somebody bullying somebody else. There's stuff that enrages you. Then there's food shortage or water shortage, or people are dying randomly. Here's a piece of health advice, or this vaccine is going to kill you. All of this crazy stuff, like which may not be crazy, but all of this stuff is kind of lined up in these rows to kind of pull you. And then right away, as they kind of like pull you further down and further down, what do you see? You see that little 45-second clip of, oh, this was Baxter, the little puppy, when we found him in the gutter, and he was very shaky and he didn't want to come to us. And then it fast forwards, but then he started growing up and we adopted him, and now he's the best dog in the world. So it's this really heartwarming thing. And then what happens right after you flip? There's an ad every
Oh,
time, every time. So it's massive Maslow fractionation, super inspiring, something super inspiring. And either you'll see an ad right after that, or then it'll be scarcity, something, fire, flood, disease, something's killing lots of people, and then an ad right after the scarcity. So it's an ad after hopefulness and scarcity almost every single time. And the weird thing is, these are algorithms not programmed by humans.
I know.
This is the app saying, I don't know why, but people tend to buy shit the moment they get exposed to X, Y, and Z, these kind of different components. So the app is figuring out fractionation by itself. This is an algorithm, a computer doing this.
Absolutely, completely, totally insane.
It's
Now,
bonkers.
you mentioned Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but I've been a student of yours, and you have a far more refined and different model of human needs. I would really like you to talk about this because I have a sense of what mine are. One of them is deviance, and the other is the need to appear intelligent. But talk about those because when I first heard this, it blew my mind. It was so original. First of all, explain it, and then I want to know how the fuck did you come up with it? Because it's absolute genius. So please tell us your model of human needs.
Yeah, so I needed to come up with a way of, I need to be able, in a very short conversation, I need to be able to hear words that people are saying, how they describe things, and piece that together in my head for how does this person's brain work, and then how can I leverage that. So when I developed this needs model, this is not some, here's what people need. It's not a universal model of what people need. It's a model of what I can ascertain rapidly and use. I understand it now. My language changes. I use different words and different phrases based on that person, and I get tremendously different results because of I understand this person. And there's several factors here, but one of the things is the needs map, and this is what we need from other people, what we need to receive from other people. And we have 6 of those. And there's a way, like within any 4-minute conversation in your whole life, you can nail someone down on what they need from other people. And this is how we get neuropeptides. This is how we get brain chemicals. It's like a drug. So we have significance, acceptance, approval, intelligence, pity, and strength. So 6 total needs there. And the significance is, do other people act in a way that makes me feel like I make a difference, like I have an impact here? The approval is, do I have permission to do this? I'm seeking permission outside of myself. The acceptance is, do other people make me feel like I belong? I'm part of a group. I tend to fit in with groups, or I'm a great leader, maybe. Intelligence is, do people see me as intelligent? I'll walk around with my university on my shirt, or whatever alumni, kind of thing, or I'll always bring up, be like, yeah, I did my master's thesis on this and all that in conversations. And the pity is interesting. It's not, do other people have pity on me? The pity is wondering secretly, do other people realize what I've been through? It's not, are they seeking pity? Do they understand what I've been through? And finally, the strength is, do other people recognize, not see, but recognize that I'm powerful or strong? And if I don't get that in child, these are all things we just didn't get in childhood. That's all it is. Because our behavior when we're 8 to 12 years old, that gets formative into adulthood, and it's extremely difficult to change. So what we're really seeing in these adults when we're seeing this is a childhood thing that was not met. And you can drastically use some language changes to dramatically shift that person. And then we have, so if I understand what I need from other people, then we move into the decision map. So here's what I need from other people, but also also need to know how this person makes decisions. And there's 6 of those. So we have uh, novelty, deviance, social, conformity, necessity, or investment and necessity. So investment, not just money, but time, energy, money. So like social, or is this going to help me connect with people? Deviance, does this break from norms? Conformity, are other people in my peer group doing this? And I'm not sure what I just covered, but we have necessity. Is this absolutely necessary? This is a friend that we all have with the cracked phone screen that's got like an iPhone 3.
Yes.
He's like, no, it still works. Like that's the necessity. And then the investment person, is this going to provide me a return, but not just financial? Will it give me a return on time? Will it give me a return on energy or money? So we make decisions those 6 different ways. And if I know what they need from a person, and if I know how they make decisions, everything changes. Whether I'm in sales, I'm speaking on a stage, I'm maybe a host of a TV show or something. I dramatically change the way that everything is presented because I know who I'm speaking to.
How do you elicit those? Let's put it, let me put it a different way. How do you elicit it, or how do you start conversations or ask questions so you can hear this language being reflected so you know how to make your approach?
Okay. Uh, just asking someone, what do you like about your job? Basic, normal, totally normal questions that you would get to know somebody. All of that crap's going to come out. Let's say you start a conversation with someone, they have a blue mohawk and like 3 piercings in one of their ears. Boom, you got deviance instantly. You know how they make decisions. And then the salesperson who doesn't know any of this is going to say, thousands of people are doing this. Everyone's doing it. It's tried and trusted. We've served this many customers, and they're doing anti-selling because they don't understand the decision process. We didn't need them to say a word, and we got it. You see somebody pull up in a Lexus and they get out with some pleated khakis, a sweater vest, and a button-down Brooks Brothers shirt. You've got conformity nailed down. You know that's a conformity-driven decision maker. So there's a lot of this stuff that we can just visually see, which is what I teach and what I write about in all my books and stuff. And just listening to how they speak. If somebody says, yeah, I've actually worked for that company for 25 years. I'm one of the senior executives now. Significance. And somebody says, oh yeah, we have a great team over there. Everybody works together really well, and it's a fantastic place to work because everybody's great. Acceptance. Or somebody says, I don't know whether or not I'll be good at that. I mean, I've done it for 10 years, but I feel like I'm going to fail every time. They're looking for approval. So like we'll hear these little things in language all day, every day, in every conversation. It's like seeing the Matrix. It's a world that's out there. No one can see this world until you like understand all these little nuances. And man, it changes the game. And that's why we train this to intelligence operatives and all that, because they have to be able to do this very quickly.
I love this stuff. Um, I don't know if this is something you're willing to talk about, and if you're not, we'll edit it out. But when
Okay.
you said see the matrix, I thought Chase has literally seen a matrix in an experiment with lasers and something else. Do you want to go there, or should we not go
Sure.
there? All right. So I didn't if anyone else other than Chase had told me this, I would not have believed it. But I believe you, Chase. So tell if you would tell our audience about this ex- uh, first of all, how did you hear about it? And then what was your experience like with it?
So I'm going to tuck this lifesaver in my lip. Oh, I'm
All right.
talking here, but so I saw this video on TikTok or on Instagram, which was kind of ripped off of TikTok, stolen from someone else's account, kind of reposted. But I saw this guy who had proven with hundreds of people that if a person uses DMT, which is a psychedelic hallucinogenic drug that stands for dimethyltryptamine. And if the person smokes DMT and then looks at this diffused laser on a wall.
What does diffused mean?
Yeah, so if you picture a laser level, like you get from Home Depot or something,
Right,
where it draws a straight line like across your room so you can
right,
hang up artwork and stuff like that. And then you diffuse it. So you put something in front of it that makes it a fuzzy. So it goes from a thin line to a kind of a fat, fuzzy line. So I have
right.
a big
Got it.
fat laser stripe on the wall. So he had proven with these hundreds of people that you do DMT and you sit there next to the wall, you can kind of, well, not kind of, you can literally see through the wall, and there's some kind of code or characters inside of it. And I thought, man, this has to be BS. So I watched the video, I watched the full video, and I'm a body language expert. I'm a detection expert. So these people weren't lying. They're not showing off. And multiple people not talking to each other could see the same code. I say code. Our language will not justify whatever that is. It's something that resembles characters.
Right.
So I see this, and I go down this rabbit hole for like half an hour, and I told my assistant, her name is Alex, who you've corresponded with quite a bit. Um, I said, find this dude. His name is Danny Goler. I said, find this guy. She found him in 10 minutes. I was like, dude, I want to fly you to my house. I want to talk about this, and then we're going to go somewhere where we can legally do this. I want to do this experiment. So I did it. I'd never done DMT in my lifetime. And holy smokes, it's weird. It's hard to explain. Um, and to this day, I've never met anyone ever. And I know neuroscientists, I know Oxford, Cambridge neuroscientists. I've never met anyone that believes that DMT is a hallucination. Not one person, which is profound in itself. So I do this DMT, and then I get up and I'm looking into this laser on the wall. There's code. It's as plain as day. So what got me, like as a like materialist science guy, which
Yes.
my belief in materialism was already starting to shatter at that point in time.
And I'd noticed this, if I could interject, I'd noticed this as I followed you and you got more into meditation and the rest of it. I saw that direction taking place.
Yeah. And it just happened for me. Some kind of a spiritual awakening. I don't know. I know
Yeah.
a lot of people want to stick labels on it or
Yeah. I get
file
it.
it away in a file somewhere. I don't know what the hell happened, but I definitely saw it. So imagine like if I had a map right here, and if it was pitch dark and you shine a flashlight at it, and you're going to see different elements of that map as you move the light. That was how, when you move the laser, it's just revealing different pieces. The same codes are there. If you're on DMT, stuff's going to change and warp and move and flex. None of these change, and they stay at the same point. So you can kind of look up into the wall and see code. You can look down. You move your head, and the code is perfectly still. Put your arm in front of the laser. You can see the code like across your arm. It was profound. And for me to say, here's what's happening, would make me a absolute moron, a fool. Uh, it was profound, and I still to this day, I have no comprehension of what it is. I don't know what it means, um, but I've seen it, and it was. I would be the guy to tell you if there was some suggestion or something like, okay, now you're going to see the code. Do you see the code? Do you see those numbers showing up? There's none of that. So like all Danny said was just go look at the wall and just tell me what you see. There was no direction, no direction. So at the end of the day, it's cool. It's meaningless because it may be 1,000 years before we understand what the hell that is. I have no idea. But it definitely helps you to understand like there are aspects to this that once you've seen that and once you've kind of been in this DMT realm, everything here looks more fake, more kind of simulated. I won't say that it's a simulation because I think the more certain somebody is, the more suspicious you should be of that person.
Yes, I couldn't agree more, and I couldn't admire more your radical willingness to say, I don't know. For someone who's as well informed and incredibly experienced as you are, to also be willing to say, I don't know. I have no idea is a perfect balance between those two things. I think many people who, first of all, there isn't anyone who knows what you know, but I think people who do, if there were someone who knew what you knew and who also had the arrogance to say, and I know everything, that person would pull himself apart because there's no way you can hold both positions.
Yeah.
Um, that that said, I I also think that there are things going on. You told me something. We had a private discussion about UFOs. And one of the things that intrigued me most is the behavior panel. That's you, Greg Hartley, Scott Rouse, and oh, I'm choking on the name of the wonderful English gentleman,
Mark Bowden.
Mark Bowden. And I remember you doing videos where you were doing analysis, deception detection analysis of a mother and her son, I believe, who claimed to have been kidnapped
Yes.
by praying mantis aliens. And the whole panel gave them like a 95% that that you didn't detect any deception,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
And I remember having a conversation with you subsequently, and I said, so are you still a skeptic about UFOs? And your answer was very interesting. Do you remember what your answer was?
No.
Your answer was the craft are real, but aliens, I'm not convinced about aliens. I have no idea. Yeah. And so you have when you were in that covert world and in the highly classified world, did you ever see any information that, uh,
Let me tell you, I've never said this anywhere on the internet before. And my clearance is expired years ago. Um, but the first day that I got a clearance, inside of the secret internet, which is called CyberNet, there is a Google like page. So like where you can search the entire secret internet system. And it's called Intel Link is the name of this system. I think it's made by Google or some subsidiary. And I got on there and I was like, oh my God, I've got access to all of this stuff. I spent, like, I swear to you, 3 to 5 hours sitting there. I Googled everything. I Googled aliens, I Googled UFOs, JFK, everything you could think of. I I searched it in this thing. I thought, I'm about to like hit this mother load. I'll never be able to talk about it, but I'm gonna hit this mother load. Um, no, it's very compartmentalized. You can get access to some kinds of things in this system. I never saw a single thing about any of that stuff. I think the craft, and I think all these people that are seeing all of this stuff going on, who the hell knows? And I talked to a Oxford professor. I don't know if I have permission to use his name, but
no,
Oxford physics professor who says that if we take the 3D world into a 2D world, it becomes a shadow, right? It becomes a flat shadow
right.
or outline of something. And if we take the 4D world into the 3D world, we don't know what that looks like. We have no clue what that would look like in our reality. So he says a lot of this may be beings that are here. We just like have no way to perceive them because a 2D creature can't look up. They can only look like this direction, and a 3D creature can't look up. So we don't know what our up is how I heard this explained.
I remember reading a book when I was very young called Flatland. Have you heard of that book?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I remember reading that. There's something else I found that we have so much we could talk about, and you know so much. Um, the Milgram experiment. I want you to talk a little bit about the Milgram experiment because I believe there was wasn't there a small percentage of people who quit the experiment, or did they all complete it? We'll get into what it was in a minute. But weren't there just one or two people who said, no, I'm not going to continue, or did they all continue the experiment?
Well, it's been repeated many times under different scenarios, different locations, and we're talking hundreds of times. But in the original experiment, they did all these variations. Some people, less than 1%, said, "I'm not doing any of this. I'm not having any part of this." And as I recall, 100% of people went up to 250 volts on this shocking machine. And to give everybody, if you don't know what the Milgram experiment is, a 30-second background. It's 1962, Yale University. The Nuremberg trials are going on. All these Nazis are saying, I was just following orders. So he's like, he builds this fake shock machine and he says, will people shock a stranger or think that they're shocking a stranger right across the other side of the wall, um, all the way to the point of maybe the person's dead just because a scientist in a lab coat told them that they needed to do it, an authority figure. And that's the Milgram experiment. And 250 volts, depending on the amperage, is enough to kill you. And about 100% of people went up to that. 64 to 67% went all the way to the maximum voltage, even though they weren't shocking. There's the guy on the other side of the wall screaming and saying, I want to get out of here. I don't want to do this anymore. And around 400 volts, there's no more noise. The guy completely stops making noise. He stops answering questions. And like, so you might think he's dead in there. And they ask you to keep going, keep going, keep going. It was horrifying, the results that came from that. And it wasn't just authority.
I know you mentioned, I know what the other element is, but I want, it's your baby. So you tell people the other element, that it was not just authority.
The other element is the gateway drug to our mammalian part of our brain, the animal that runs our body. Like it's really, truly in charge of us. It's the reason, like if you try to hold your breath until you die, you're not going to do that because the mammalian brain is going to say, nope, I'm going to knock your ass out or I'm going to make you breathe. It's one of those two. So at the end of the day, when we have a mammalian brain and a human brain that's kind of layered on top of each other. These are called hierarchical structures in neuroscience. So this lower hierarchical structure is protected by this outer part called the neocortex, which is literally in Latin, the new cover. So the new covering over this mammalian brain. But the mammalian brain is what makes our decisions. And it's the same thing that's in a dog's head or a dolphin or any other mammal. But the gateway to the mammalian brain is focus. If I can just get your focus, then I can get you to the next step of influence or persuasion. So what they did is they utilized novelty. And I think that they didn't plan on this. Dr. Milgram didn't write about this. But anything brand new to our brain says, wait, I don't have a script, I don't have an app to open for this because this is unfamiliar. So I have to really pay attention because this is brand new. It's just like our ancestor hearing a stick breaking behind a bush at night and like going, whoa, like what was that? So these people who are participating in the Milgram experiment, it is an ad they've never responded to in the paper. They're driving to a building they've never been inside of, meeting people they've never met before, in a room they've never seen, in a machine they've never seen. Everything is brand spanking new. Every single element is novelty. And that didn't factor into Dr. Milgram's research.
Um, I credit, see, first of all, I think this is genius. I've never heard anyone talk about novelty as a way of generating focus. And I also give you credit for this quote. I've stolen this quote and I use it all the time, but it originated with you, Chase. I'm sure you were the one who said that focus is the currency of any kind of influence or persuasion or sale. I would add seduction. If you can't get focus, then the rest of it is ridiculous. But this brings us to your other, I keep praising you. I'm not trying to, uh, I, I don't need to polish your apple. You know how much I love you, and truly the
Yeah,
admiration is true.
thank you.
Uh,
It's mutual.
well, thank you. And I want to talk at the end of this, I want to talk about how you found me. You hunted me down somehow. I guess Chase Hughes, when he wants to find someone, knowing his connections, can find them. You have the fate model. I know what it stands for. And this to me is one of the most powerful things you have because it works, but also it's so simple in its acronym. So fate, I believe it is focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. We've talked about focus and we've talked about authority. Now, authority can be something like the lab coat, correct? Or someone who's when the president, whoever he is, Trump, Obama, whatever, he's standing behind that great seal of the presidency of the United States. That's authority, or they play hail to the chief. When the police officer pulls you over, he's got the police car, he's got the badge, et cetera, et cetera. That's authority.
Yeah.
Any other kinds of authority, someone with a title like doctor or professor or
Yeah. So I have a tag in my shirt that's really itchy.
well, I've got this bronchitis, so we're even.
So what you're talking about there is like positional authority. So we're socially expected to comply with these certain positions. But if I go to like uh, a bar or a restaurant, a networking event, whatever it is, and somebody introduces themselves and their confidence is through the roof and their posture is great, they deliver really well, they're not posturing and they have composure and presence, that tells our brain this is an authority figure. So we have the signals for our brain. We have the symbols of like lab coat, cop, teacher, professor, all of that. Those are symbols. And on the other side, we have signals. So authority has symbols and signals. And the signals are like movement, appearance, confidence, connection, and uh, our ability to feel that person's intent. So MACCI, movement, appearance, confidence, connection, and intent. Those are the signals of
Let's talk about that. You mean the other person's ability to feel my intent or my ability as the authority to feel the other person's intent? I'm confused.
their ability to feel your intent and that it's good or that they want to join in with that intent.
Yes, because this is the thing I detect about you. I detect you're not only composed in every situation, but your intent as a benevolent person is clear. How you signal that, I'm not exactly sure. I know for sure if you were malignant or not benevolent, you would be an extraordinarily destructive and dangerous human being. How do you how do you signal your intent of being benevolent? Because I know you are. I guess if someone threatened your family, that would switch very quickly. But
Yeah.
outside of that, your intent is very benevolent. How I guess the signaling naturally arises from holding the position rather than you saying, "Well, now I'm going to speak in this way." Would you say it just naturally arises and is conveyed by the fact that that's your genuine intent?
Yes. And I think that just having that genuine intent in your heart and wanting that for the other person sub communicates that to their unconscious part of their brain. And if we get to a place where the way that I define ethics and persuasion and influence is if that person could at any point in time jump into my head and see everything that I want them to do, would they eject or would they be excited? If they could see inside of my head, would they be disgusted or delighted? That's how I define ethics in persuasion.
I think that makes most politicians pretty unethical because if we could jump inside their head, we would
Yeah.
be pretty disgusted by by what we see. And yet at the same time, with everything you're saying about being able to detect intent, I know people who have been damaged by narcissists. Narcissists somehow are able to conceal? Is it that narcissists can conceal that intent, or that people who they prey on are deliberately unable to detect intent, or both, or neither?
Narcissists, about 95% of the time, narcissists aren't doing that on purpose. It's these are learned childhood behaviors of manipulation. So they're not aware of manipulation taking place. They think this is how the world works and this is how people interact. So a lot of people are very quick to think that there's some chess game going on in their head, but in reality, they're looking for love, or they're looking for some kind of connection. That's the way they know how to get it. So I don't instantly judge a person who shows any narcissistic traits, but I will say narcissists become good in childhood at really figuring out a hole in who you are, and finding a way to fill that hole, fill that void, and provide a ton of dopamine at the same time. And the thing that happens with narcissists is I'm in a conversation with a really, really good narcissist. As soon as that conversation over, there's a come down. There's some process of me going, whoa, I don't feel very good. There's kind of a letdown, and it feels weird because dopamine has a very short half-life, and that wasn't me enjoying myself. That was dopamine all the way through there, pleasure instead of enjoyment, which we, as a Western society especially,
Ooh.
confuse those two things.
We could talk for hours about that distinction between pleasure and enjoyment. Is there a one of the things that, because you're a neuroscientist, that you said that really caught me is that we're all drug addicts. All of
Yeah.
us are drug addicts. I don't mean that we're injecting heroin, but we're all addicted to different neurochemicals. Is there a different neurochemical, a neuropeptide, however you would define it, for enjoyment versus pleasure?
Yeah. So when we're experiencing pleasure, the pleasure and enjoyment, let's talk about what they have in common. Uh, there's a tiny bit of dopamine and there's GABA. GABA is the main thing both of those really have in common. GABA stands for gamma aminobutyric acid, and it's our brain's number one inhibitory neurotransmitter. It basically says, hey, calm the hell down. Everything's good. Everything's fine. But in pleasure, we have mostly kind of dopamine. There's a bunch of other stuff, but it's kind of a dopamine reaction. And in enjoyment, this is more oxytocin and serotonin. So love, happiness. So in the Western world, and I do not think that people realize how damaging marketing has been, being exposed to it for 30, 40 years. It permanently, in for many people, permanently inhibits your ability to tell the difference between pleasure and happiness. And it confuses those two things. It twists them up in this weird braid where you can't see which one is which one. Which one is why, like, I'm gonna buy this new thing so I can feel better. Then you need to buy a new thing, because happiness is not, in our brains, is not completely unplugged from pleasure.
Wow. Wow, that's a mind blower. I've learned a lot. What changed my view of all this stuff is 2006 when I encountered my meditation teacher, Shinzen Young. And I've never heard the distinction before between happiness and satisfaction, between pleasure and satisfaction. That most of us never truly experience pleasure from a place of completion and equanimity. And so we keep going for more novelty, more more quantity, and more frequency, and we never experience satisfaction. But I get it. That's another brilliant way of putting it. We
I think it's true. And I think the number one thing that's happened to me is probably 6 years ago, I did, just for therapy, therapeutically, I did this massive uh, psychedelic assisted therapy. And it was a massive dose. And that was my first taste of ego death. And I realized, like, I have lived most of my life as an addict, like an ego addict, where I needed some kind of a validation. I needed people to like me. my self-worth and how I define myself was all outside of me. And I was a grown man. Like I wish I had learned this when I was 10 or 12. But it was, I feel like it was late in life, but maybe it was early. Um, but I got to this point of like, I understood like, oh my God, there's a life outside of this little costume that I wore, this little act that I put on. And I will say one thing, nobody, no one who has tasted ego death wants to go back. Nobody walks out of like a silent retreat or maybe of a breathwork session or a vision quest in the jungle or a near death experience and says, you know what? I really miss defending all my bullshit. I miss that anxiety of needing everybody to like me. I miss waking up every day performing a version of myself that I don't even believe in. That doesn't happen. Uh, and I just wish for everybody that like that is the most profound self-improvement you can do is just kind of learning to find that little zipper of the ego costume and just kind of start pulling it down a little bit at a time and just letting some air come into that underneath that costume and it.
This is why I meditate every day. It's a much gentler way of experiencing in 30 minutes of meditation, I maybe get 5 seconds of ego vanishment, disappearing. I don't know if it's death, but it disappears completely. And there's no distinction between self and world. I don't feel that there's a solid self in there. I just get the sense of something arising and flowing. I know I disidentify with any solid self. So I
Yeah,
take the gentle route. I don't, one of these days, I know also you've done other psychedelics that have helped you heal profoundly, like profound healing that nothing else has done.
yeah.
I have my own qualms about it because I talk openly about my bipolar and taking medications for that. I would do it in a heartbeat if I didn't have the fear that it would contraindicate with those. But Chase, before I let you go, uh, you've been a wonderful guest, and I'm so grateful to have you as my brother and my teacher in my life. You've been so over the top kind and loving to me and helpful to me. I do want to ask you,
Likewise.
two things happened. I remember you were in San Diego with me. We were having Thai food for dinner. I don't know if you remember this story. And for some reason, I got up and went to the bathroom. When I came back, my watch, my wallet, and my keys were on the table. I have no memory of having put them there or why I put them there. You must have done something with me. You don't even have to tell me what you did, but did you do something or was that just me wanting to do that?
I did. I needed, so as some context for anybody listening that thinks I'm a weirdo, um, I was active duty in the military and I needed help. This is Paul and I's first time meeting. I needed Paul's help translating some stuff that could be used in another language in the Middle East. I'll just leave it at that. And I thought it was going to be some 6 hour discussion, but it turned out to be about 18 seconds is how long it took you to do that. Uh, Honest to God, it was about that long.
Yeah.
But right when we sat down, I used a technique that I teach in a course called my Black course, which is like an operative level course that I teach to everybody, civilians, but it's called Captor. And I will send it to you after this so you can look at it
Okay. CAPTOR.
with a K,
Oh,
Kaptor.
uh, do your kids, we won't talk about who your kids are, how old they are, but do your children know any of this stuff? Have you trained them in any of this?
Yes, probably too much too early. It's a regret that I have.
Too much, too early. Chase, all of my audience are going to want to stay in the conversation with you. I know you're such a busy man and you have such an embarrassment of genius and riches to offer. Where do people get started? I mean, NCI, your institute's probably filled. I don't even think you're taking anymore now, or is there room for people in that? Where do people get started with you?
I think there's a free course, and it's not some like, hey, click here, I'm going to deliver you some bullshit and then send you a bunch of sales pitch. It's a legit badass free course. It's at nci.university. you want to go there and take a look at it, it's just sign up for a course, nci.university.
Chase, thank you so much for honoring me by having excuse me, it's the cold medicine, the bronchitis, by gracing us with your presence on the show. You are probably the most popular guest, along with my niece, who you know and highly regard. So thank you.
And Mr. Bandler. You had Mr. Bandler on.
And of course, Richard Bandler. We had Richard on. But I think you even surpassed him in your ratings, in your popularity, and your views on the show. So thank you, and we'll talk a little bit off the air. Once again, do I bring you the best guests in the world? Of course I do, and the aliens are real. But
The Influencer's Edge is brought to you by the Rapid Sales Accelerator. If you're ready to skyrocket your sales by 30% or more in just 90 days, then you need to claim your free training right now. You'll learn 4 words that will compel your prospects to trust you like they were children within the first 3 to 5 minutes of any conversation across any platform and any medium. You'll learn how to give your prospects objection amnesia, to crush objections like, I need to talk to my spouse, or I need more time to think it over, or it's too expensive. If you'd like to claim your free training now, go to www.paulrossbook.com. Do it before your competition does it now. Thank you for tuning in to the Influencer's Edge, where you get the latest breakthroughs, cutting-edge insights, tools, and techniques so you can leapfrog over the pack in sales, influence, and persuasion. Remember to visit our website at www.theinfluencersedge.com to enjoy even more great episodes like this one. We look forward to seeing you again on the Influencer's Edge Show.